I was just like kind of in awe at the fact that like Jesus really did lay down his life. Like he really did. It was really in his willpower to do it. I'm going to lay my life down for these people because these are my lot. Like this is my lost sheep and I'm going after them. And I'm going to lay my life down for them.
Good afternoon and welcome back to this week's Table Talk. We are nearing the end of the Gospel according to Luke. We are in Unit 9 of Part 4, the crucifixion and the burial of Jesus Christ. And this week we're glad you could join us, and we are very excited that Miss Bella Tisdale could join us at the table. Welcome, Bella.
Thank you.
So good to see you and have you here. We, for those of you who are saying, wait, I know who that is. I see her on Sunday mornings. You've been part of the praise band?
Yeah, I'm on the worship team, and I lead worship in big church and in youth. So
that's fantastic. Yeah. Well, and also, Bella, what in life right now, as you know, and the Lord wills, where are you? What are you moving toward? There's something going on here in the near future?
In about 2 weeks, I'm leaving for North India to be living there for 2 months and working with a missionary family out there to do some work. So I'm super excited about that. And then this fall, I'm leaving in the last week of August to go to Wyoming to do a discipleship training school there with CWAM, which is a branch off of YWAM. So it's called Cowboys with a Mission. I'll be doing a discipleship training school there. Wow. And then, so I'll be in Wyoming for 3 months, like moving cattle and learning how to be a missionary. And then I'll be going to Costa Rica for 2 months to do my outreach and like apply what I've learned. So,
you had this Texas boy at Cowboy with a Mission right there. I know my dad's a faithful watcher. He's going to be signing up for that too. So that's awesome. Well, wow. May the Lord use you in all these ways. Yeah. And thank you for fitting us in today. And we look forward to having this conversation. Yeah. Thanks, Bella. Excited. David?
Good to be here.
Welcome back.
Good to be here
this week. And we're moving toward Easter Sunday. Resurrection Sunday, this coming Sunday, and that will actually sort of wrap up these 39 weeks that we've looked at the Gospel of Luke.
Right. Yeah.
And so we'll talk more about that. But before we get to the resurrection, we have this pivotal moment in history. I was going to say in Christian history, but just in history. And that's with the crucifixion and the burial of Jesus Christ. And so we just want to have a conversation about that, and we'll start by just reading a few verses and starting into this passage. Yeah. And so, Bella, would you mind reading Luke 23, verses 32 through 38?
Yeah, sure. Crucified between two criminals. 2 others, criminals, were also led away to be executed with him. When they arrived at the place called the Skull, they crucified him there, along with the criminals, one on the right and one on the left. Then Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, because they do not know what they are doing." And they divided his clothes and cast lots. The people stood watching, and even the leaders were scoffing. "He saved others, let him save himself, if this is God's Messiah, the chosen one." The soldiers also mocked him. They came offering him sour wine and said, "If you are the king of the Jews, save yourself." An inscription above him, "This is the King of the Jews."
Wow, there's a lot there as we sort of move through this this setting. Of course, Jesus has been led away following the trials. And before we kind of get into some of the images here and the understandings, Bella, I wanted to ask you, when you think about the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, you think about the cross.
Yeah.
What comes to mind for you?
I would say the first thing that came to mind was like our relationship with him, honestly. Like, the vertical versus the horizontal.
Okay, so you see the cross.
Yeah, I was like seeing like my relationship with him and kind of like what he did for me, and the fact that he died for our imperfect sin and took that upon him to do.
Okay, that's great. Which, part of what I wanted to ask that is just the imagery of the cross, has changed over 2,000 years. Mm-hmm. And that's wonderful that you're able to see that in there. And hopefully that's what we see. As we get back into sort of the context of this passage, the the cross would have been seen in a much different light.
Yeah.
I think that the whole crucifixion process, pretty gruesome, pretty normal. I mean, David, what do you know, or how can you tell us more about what's going on here with the place of the skull and the cross itself? You know, he had Simon help carry the cross. Is there anything we should know about this practice? Or
well, it was obviously a horrific, way to put someone to death, horrible way to die. It was very public. It was very humiliating. Known in Roman times as the slave's punishment because it was a deterrent to runaway slaves. And I think typically a Roman citizen would not have been crucified except under rare circumstances.
Okay.
But, horrible death, horrible way to die. Apparently on this hill that had somewhat of the shape of a human skull, so it was called the Kronion, the place of a skull.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
And outside of the city, my understanding is sort of along one of the major roadways into the city, that it might serve as a deterrent, that it might demonstrate Roman order and rule and law.
Authority.
Authority is. And so, in a way, if a first century believer would see the cross today and think that, for us, that's almost like wearing a necklace with an electric chair around it, right? Or something.
That's right. Horrible.
But being able to see it differently after the cross as well. Well, and so I wanted to sort of fine tune in on these criminals. Yeah. So for one, there would have been many. This day, this moment, there were at least 2 others, but there probably would have been others. Immediately following this reference to the criminal on his right and the criminal on the left, Jesus makes this statement, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." Who is the them? I mean, it's immediately after we're told about the criminals, but I don't think he's talking about the criminals, is he?
Not like specifically them.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's kind of like.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Who do you think he's saying forgive? Where's the forgiveness sort of demonstrated?
I think the people who were there in front of him, including those who had crucified him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Who were dividing up his garments, casting lots for them.
So the Roman soldiers.
Yeah. The very next verse says, "And they cast lots to divide his garments." So I think those were the soldiers.
Okay. And then after that verse, it goes on to say, "And the ruler scoffed at him." Mm-hmm. So do you think the them includes also the Jewish religious leaders? You think so?
I think it could have included all of them. I mean, even the people on the cross too.
Okay.
I think it could have included them because they had been in the wrong too.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, verse 36, the soldiers also mocked him, offering him sour wine and saying, "If you're the king of the Jews, save yourself." So,
in this moment, we see this sort of this demonstration of, complete forgiveness.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, so if we think that it includes all of them, then why would he say they don't know what they're doing? It seems like they do know what they're doing.
Maybe they didn't understand who he really was and understand who they were really treating this way.
Okay.
Good point.
Wow. And so forgiveness for this, what is that? What's our application for us then? How might we apply that?
I think sometimes we, like these leaders and the people crucifying him, may not realize like what we're doing is sinful and realize like kind of that plank in our own eye.
Okay.
Rather than pointing out like, the speck in other people's eyes.
Yeah.
But I think that sometimes we may not realize what we're doing but the Father continues to forgive us and continues to, like he's saying, forgive them for they know not what they're doing.
Okay.
Like I kind of wonder like what if Jesus is looking down on us saying that sometimes like forgive them because like forgive her because she doesn't know what she's doing. Yeah. And then maybe that is a lesson for later on looking back on that and being like, I didn't know what I was doing.
So good. So a relationship sort of we see the Father still forgives us maybe when we don't know what we're doing. Anything from the vertical as far as the bar. Do we apply that forgiveness to others as well, David? Do you think there's a lesson here about being Christ-like? Then?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yes. I mean, he told us in Mark 11:25, when you stand praying, forgive if you have anything against anyone. Love your enemies. Bless those who curse you.
Yeah.
Pray for those who despitefully use you and persecute you.
Yeah.
He taught that.
do good to those who hate you. The whole sort of Sermon on the Mount, and that's a tough thing to do.
Yeah.
But you know what? I kind of compare this to when Paul is sort of, I forget which letter it is, David, but he's talking about how, non-believers, the world, you can't blame them. We can't expect them to know how to act or how to behave. And, it's also he goes on, it's not for us to judge them, but we can't expect a non-believer to behave in a Christ-like way. Right. And in an element, there's an idea of sort of forgiving that, for they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And having compassion, really sadness about that, but being the Christ in that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's good application. We often look at what's happening in the world, and sometimes as Christians we're filled with anger at the people because of the positions they're taking, the things they're doing, and don't realize they're living in darkness.
Yeah.
Their minds have been blinded by the God of this world. They haven't had the spiritual illumination yet. So always appropriate to pray for their salvation rather than holding anger.
Is that hard? Well, Bella, you've just recently had that experience from a school perspective, right?
Yeah.
That maybe having a position or being known as someone who would be a follower of Jesus, that maybe things were said or done or treated differently, and just being able to sort of look to that as sadness because they don't know what they're saying. They don't know who.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely been times that I've experienced that, like when people have come up to me and, made comments about being a Christian or like living the way that I do. Like I was one of the top of the class students, and so I was in the same classes as the top of the class students. And so, I mean, all of them knew that I was a Christian and that I didn't partake in some of the things that they partook in. But
I wouldn't know either. Yeah.
Yeah. So, so yeah, I mean, there was a lot of comments made sometimes, like, because they would be like, you're not like us, and like can almost condemn me for not doing what they did or participating in what they did, and rather focusing on things like starting ministry here or like participating in common grounds or like doing other things with my nights rather than partying and going out with these people. So,
So forgiveness. So Jesus speaks, and these words are sort of the forgiveness on the multitudes. And then we'll look at this next passage. David, if you would read verses 39 through 43, he has more of a narrow focus to the audience for his next words here.
One of the criminals who were hanged railed at him, saying, "Are you not the Christ? Save yourself and us." But the other rebuked him, saying, "Do you not fear God, since you're under the same sentence of condemnation? And we indeed justly, for we are receiving the due reward of our deeds. And this man has done nothing wrong." And he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." And he said to him, "Truly I say to you, today you will be with me in paradise."
Oh, this is really rich. I mean, there's some really sound, necessary, essential theology in what's happening right here. Can you picture this? Can you see the two, right?
Yeah.
The conversation that's having, and one is moving forward, sort of in demonstrating depravity that we're all born into, and refusing to change or to resist, and the other is reaching unto Christ as his Savior.
Yeah.
Reminds me of the conversation we were having earlier, Bella, that this is one of those verses that says, it can't be about works.
Yeah.
Because the other thief, he had no works.
Yeah.
And what does Jesus tell him?
I mean, he told the man who was repenting for for what he had done, and like kind of looking back and being like, man, I really did mess up. Like, he forgave him and was like, you're going to be in paradise with me today.
Yeah.
While the other guy, I would almost like, I'm kind of picturing it as like a person, like, when you have like a little angel devil on one side and then you have the good guy on the other side. So one guy's like kind of mocking him. The other guy's like, dude, what are you doing? Like, you're in the wrong. Just like accept it. So that's kind of what I was thinking about the whole time.
Yeah, that's exactly. And David, you've probably seen this before. Maybe someone in their final moments, their last days.
Yeah.
And maybe has that question of, well, it's too late for me.
Right.
And this might be an opportunity to share.
Yes.
Is there anything you expound on in that when you think about this at all? Or
Well, it's a good verse to point 2 for those who say you must be baptized in water to be saved, because this man was not baptized in water.
Oh, okay.
Or you must have done something, whether it's take the Lord's Supper or something like that. It's a good verse to point to.
Yeah.
This
I never thought about
so-called deathbed confession.
Right.
I think I once heard someone say it this way: there's only one such instance of this in Scripture that none may presume. There's one instance that none may despair, but only one that none may presume.
Okay.
In other words, there's one example like this, so it gives hope for this. But there's only one, so don't go around living your life saying, hey, I'm going to party and do what I want to do, and at the end, I'm going to pray the sinner's prayer, because most people die the way they've lived. I have seen people do a deathbed confession, but it's rare.
Yeah, I mean, there was a friend of mine that we were talking about, like partying and going down the wrong path, and he was kind of like, yeah, I'm just going to do what I want, and then when I feel like growing up and I feel like settling down, I'll give everything back to Christ. Because he was like, I'm just going to have fun in the moment. And I was like, come on.
Yeah.
So
it goes back to the warnings of James and others.
It's not like a switch
Solomon,
you can turn on and off. The conviction of the Holy Spirit.
The parable of Jesus, that you fool, you do not know this very night your life will be taken from you, right? So sort of waiting for that. But, what he also demonstrates in that, it seems really beautiful, is he acknowledges his guilt. He acknowledges that he deserves death. He turns to Jesus. He actually confesses Jesus as Lord and his kingdom, and seeks that forgiveness.
Yeah.
He asks it, and then that's when salvation is granted.
Yeah.
So it's a picture of the gospel, really, the receiving of the gospel.
Yes.
The ABCs is maybe.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking.
Back in with Miss Marie.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ABCs. He says, paradise, you'll be with me today in paradise. Is that heaven?
I'm not sure. I was just kind of thinking, like, before all of this, like, what did these people think that heaven was? Like, what did they think? Like, I don't know what this paradise is. Would it be heaven? Is there?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
What do you think, David?
I take it that way.
Okay.
I do take it that way.
Okay.
I don't take it as a temporary holding place.
Right.
And I think it's significant because Jesus doesn't say you'll go into, countless years of unawareness or soul sleep until I return and then you'll come awake, but rather today you'll be with me.
Yes.
So I think when we die, we are in the Lord's presence.
Right.
We don't have a resurrection body yet, but I think we are in the Lord's presence. That's my opinion.
And that seems to be the implication here as
Seems
well.
To be.
And
Seems to be.
He also, what he doesn't say is, okay, good, you've asked, I'm giving you forgiveness. You're no longer immediately condemned, but now you need others to pray for you. Again, in that holding area of such.
Right.
There was great assurance in this remark by Jesus. There was nothing else necessary.
Right.
Because what's about to happen in these moments, it's done for you.
Yes.
Well, that's great. Well, I always want to look, right? So paradise here, the word that was used in Greek, actually, if you've heard this, David, means enclosed garden. And many believe that that's that reference to sort of that the new Eden or the new garden or the that sort of Genesis to Revelation aspect that Jesus is talking about, the restored relationship, perfection, presence with God.
That's interesting.
Isn't it? Yeah. So today, not that it's some sort of utopian, life on the beach and a lot of flowery, and people bringing you drinks and all that kind of, paradise, right? As we see on the sandals commercials. But this is the emphasis on the restored, perfected presence with God. Wow. Yeah. That's what a word that thief has heard now, right? So, so I'm not going to read all of these, but for our small groups, this unit goes all the way to verse 56, and what we would see if we kept reading is we would actually see the death. We would see that on the 6th hour, the darkness, and so really from noon to 3, there was darkness, and then we will see that the veil was torn. I like how Mark says that it's torn from the top to the bottom. which really the emphasis on that it was only the work of God in that moment.
Yes.
And that's a really important notation as well. And Bella, have you ever heard that emphasis on the veil being torn at the time of the death of Jesus?
I mean, I've heard like I've read the story, I know the story, but I've never heard like the emphasis that was put on it this past Sunday.
Okay.
Talking about like Jesus as our high priest. Like I never thought about it that way, as like Jesus as the high priest. I thought about it like Jesus as the teacher and Jesus as the Father, but not as Jesus as the high priest. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, it's so important in it, David. I mean, what in context too, what was happening with the veil. This is the inner veil to the most holy.
I've read commentators that say we don't know for sure. The one from the temple court or the Holy of Holies.
Right.
But either way, the idea of restricted access, I think, seems reasonable. And the book of Hebrews really presents Jesus in his role now as the high priest, the great high priest. So we don't have to go through a human mediator. We don't have to go through a place. We have access.
Yes.
Access with confidence, actually, through faith in him.
Yeah, where once it was reserved for the high priest.
Right.
Jesus now acts as that, and so the veil's torn that we have direct access.
Right.
That's beautiful. And so we have that made, and then we have the centurion remark. So this is at the moment that he says his final words, and it says that he called out loud voice, "Into your hands I commit my spirit." And having said this, he breathed his last, and when the centurion soldier saw what had taken place, he praised God, saying, "Certainly this man was innocent." Mark 15 will say that, and I believe Matthew as well will say that the centurion also referenced him as the Son of God.
Yeah.
He was the Son of God. What do we make of that? Why would that be inspired word that we should learn from or see the context?
I'm not sure. I mean, I don't think I've ever noticed like mine says, "Father, into your hands I entrust my spirit," before he breathed his last. I don't think I ever noticed that.
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting, like him fully, I feel like it's almost him fully like laying down himself at that moment. Like, Father, like, here I am.
Yeah. So. Which is an indication too of he willingly did this.
Yeah.
No one took it from him.
Yeah. Right.
He's now committing his spirit. No one else is.
At the Father's will.
Yeah.
So.
The it is finished aspect of that too. Wow. The centurion, David?
Well, I think he saw what was happening. He saw the signs and said, hey, he was right. Yeah. He is the Son of God. He was the Son of God. Yeah. He was innocent.
Amazing. A Gentile.
He's been wrongly put to death here.
Yeah. Roman soldier is observing all this. Eyes of Jesus. And again, I'll reference Mark. I know we're in Luke, but I also like how in Mark, this theme is throughout his gospel record, the Son of God. Mark 1:1 recognizes Jesus Christ, the Son of God, and then he moves us toward this place on the cross where the centurion says, surely this man is the Son of God. So in all ways, we see this reference by the centurion as the Son of God. Anything else on these passages? The cross, the death.
I was just like kind of in awe at the fact that like Jesus really did lay down his life. Like he really did. It was really in his willpower to do it. Like it wasn't just, oh man, God's making me do this. Okay. Like it was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna lay my life down for these people because these are my lot. Like this is my lost sheep, and I'm going after them. And I'm gonna lay my life down for them. So I felt like I was like, oh man, like he laid his life down for me. So
that's great.
Yeah,
that's great. Well, thank you, Bella. David, anything else?
No, just echo that. I think the whole passage is beautiful when we reflect on why he did it. Done for us. It was for us.
Well, in our final thought here is we have this essential moment, and this isn't so much an essential doctrine as it is an essential understanding, I think. I think it's really important to our understanding who Jesus is and what he did for us to consider for a moment this idea about his death. He breathed his last. It says that he would then be buried. And I think the question has come up from time to time is, did Jesus truly die? Or was there something spiritual that was going on? What would we think about that from this passage? Or what is the reason that Jesus, if he did die physically, body, spirit, why, or what would that mean? And if he didn't die, if it was just sort of in his holding pattern as well.
What are your thoughts on that?
This is probably the hardest essential moment all season,
whoa.
Bella. So they've all been easy until we got to you. So this is a hard one.
I feel like from my reading it, I feel like, because do our souls like completely die when we die, or do they go straight to heaven? Like, is that like, that's what I'm thinking, is like, did his soul actually die, or was it just his body? And then his soul went to heaven to be with the Lord. So I'm kind of like...
That's the thought.
I have no idea.
Yeah, good thought. David?
Well, I think we read in the book of James that the body without the spirit is dead.
Yeah.
The spirit, to be absent from the body, is to be present with the Lord.
Yes.
And so I would suggest that he died bodily, really.
Yeah.
Died bodily, but not his spirit.
Not spirit, right.
Right.
But the distinction is, in his body, in his humanity, physically, he did die fully and completely.
100%.
Yeah.
He had to.
Yes.
He had to, or else he couldn't have paid the punishment. He couldn't have atoned for our sins if he weren't completely dead.
Yeah.
And the reason I just sort of brought this up, this may seem like a small thing, but I think it's important because we also we state that in the Apostles' Creed.
Yes. Yeah. We state it.
We make the statement that Jesus descended to the dead,
right?
That he completely was dead in his body, the Sheol that is spoken of in David, and otherwise because we deserved that death completely, and he stepping in for us, substitutionary atonement, had to also experience it.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I think so.
Well, maybe we did get to that.
Yeah, I feel like it wouldn't. It wouldn't have been that miraculous, like raising from the dead, if he hadn't fully died either.
Yes.
So I feel like him fully dying was and fully coming back to life was also part of that like miraculous thing to see for the people around him too.
That is so important, Bella, and so profound. There were a couple of different heresies in the early centuries that said, well, Jesus didn't truly die.
Yeah.
He only appeared dead. That God wouldn't die in his humanity and those sort of things. But the resurrection is only the resurrection if he was fully dead in his body.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Well, fantastic. Well, hey, thanks for joining us, Bella.
Of course.
Maybe in a future season, after all of this cowboying and everything, we'll get you back. But thank you, David. Thanks for joining us.
Great
and we've got one more. And in a few weeks, you will see Table Talk come out with the very last chapter, really, to Luke's Gospel, the resurrection. And we want to talk about that. And then we're going to give you a little special update to what's ahead with future Table Talks in a new creative change that might be going on. So we hope to see you then. Until then, have a wonderful, blessed, worship-filled Easter, and have a blessed week.